Wow. Well, the other day, I wasn't so worried about leaving. I think I was thinking about the descent of that little mound right there. This sand is intensely thick and fine, and the car is incredibly heavy. The tires are not aired down right now. I don't know that it would make that much of a difference at the moment. So I'm gonna have some fun, and I'm gonna pull out my land anchor, and I'm gonna go ahead and winch myself up that little mound, which may not look like much, but that sand is about 20 to 30 centimeters thick. And yeah, it is what it is, right? I could use the recovery boards, but just for the sake of kicks and giggles, I'm gonna pull out my pull pal and winch myself up and over this little mound and down the other side. Why? Because I'm in no rush. And whenever you have to do what I would call a major recovery, which involves a winch or a kinetic strap or some type of more intense recovery other than a recovery board, I normally recommend to pause, make yourself a cup of tea or a nice espresso, breathe, relax, evaluate the situation, take your time, so that you don't make any mistakes. Don't be in a rush. If you're trying to get somewhere, phone ahead, tell them you're gonna be late, right? Just enjoy the recovery process, because it can actually be fun, even though it might be a little annoying. So, during that second attempt, actually also, no, during the first attempt, the latter part of my first attempt, I even engaged the lockers, which normally in sand like this don't work as well as the traction control does, which of course was set to sand. So, while I've got an espresso on, I'm going to take the camera around and show you how gnarly this is. Time for an espresso. So, interestingly enough, I really appear to have the same situation departing that I did coming in, which is, there's obviously a nice little bit of a rise, 4 or 5 degrees, and slight tilt toward this third wheel. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 is how the wheels are numbered. And with this sand, and you know, sand also changes throughout the course of a day. When it's hot and dry, it's kind of fluffy and difficult. In the morning times, it can be a heavier density, a little bit of like a morning dew, a little stickier, almost a little bit more like peanut butter. So sometimes that can create a bit of a cement foundation for you to make things easier. Like if you've ever seen people driving along the ocean or the sea, when the waves come in and where the waves stop and break, there's that nice flat, almost like a cement portion. But then if you go a little bit farther in, it's, you know, fluffy, powdery sand. So you'd be surprised how much sand conditions can change. And you know, now the sun's breaking just within a day. So I'm going to enjoy my coffee, my espresso, which is cafe in Italian, and yeah, get started on the pull pal. Buon appetito. Now, I happen to have all of my recovery gear behind the driver and passenger seats, along the bottom where your feet would normally sit before I remove the rear seats. So it's reasonably heavy equipment, but it sits as low as possible, the full width of the vehicle. I don't have to get in there very often, but I can access the equipment from either side, because in this instance, the vehicle's tilted a little to the left, up, and back, like I said, down to the tire number 3. So if I were in a serious rut like this and you've got earth and you can't open that one door, it's important that you be able to access your equipment from either side. If my wife were here, this would be the director's chair. It's a recovery tow strap, which we will not be using today. These are pulls for the awning. And I'm going to go around. No, I can't. Let's imagine I can. This is a Catadine Expedition water filter. Produces about a gallon a minute, which is pretty incredible for 4 to 10 people. But it's so that I can refill my water tank with potable water. This is actually a bona fide sniper's mat. So it'll open up with a little padding, really long, nice and wide, so that I can get under the vehicle to inspect it without getting disgustingly dirty. And that was it. So I have to remove a couple pieces of equipment, but again, you're not getting into this very often, so it doesn't have to be the most accessible thing in the world. You know, wasn't too bad. So this is the spade. This is what's going to be digging into the sand up ahead to use for the land acre to help pull us out. I almost forgot, this is my Julka shower bathroom, which is pretty cool because it's so easy to set up and break down, and it's quite lightweight. That was it. So this is the pull pal, which opens up with the spade. This is our land anchor. And it's a pretty sizable piece of equipment. That's it. That's all she wrote. So, let's take the camera and head on down. So I think as this camera angle indicates, it's a far more gnarly ascent that we experienced yesterday using the traction boards. And I got stuck just at the tippy top as we were about to crest it. And today, coming in the other direction to come back up and over it, there's actually far more sand on the back side of this little hill than there is on the front side. And this front side is, you know, slanted and very sticky. So, this is a pull pal. They're out of Colorado, where I grew up. Originally intended for use with tractors. This one in particular has a towing capacity of 14,000 pounds. So more than sufficient, of course, for my vehicle, which is a little over 8,000 pounds. The ideal pulling capacity should be 150% or more of your gross vehicle weight rating, or the weight of the actual vehicle with all of your gear and equipment and water and fuel. So one of the things that makes this unit so nice is it's compact. So when you want to break it apart and put it into your vehicle, it's very easy to store for those moments like now when you need it. If I didn't have this specific piece of equipment, I could get out from that using the traction boards. I might have to do it 1 or 2 times, maybe 3, I don't know. But I just thought that this would be a good opportunity to make use of it, if nothing else, for the channel and for some great content and your viewing enjoyment. So, set the spade in for the time being. We're going to open up our pull pal, which elongates, right, like this. There's a little lever here that kind of locks it into place. I'm going to make sure it's in the center. Has 4 little teeth. Sets on, clicks, and then that little lever prevents it from leaving. So now, want to have as straight a line as possible. I'm gonna grab the winch and connect it to the front and winch myself out of the situation. Let's do it. This is a great new bracket from ARB. Rather than using a traditional hook, it's a far more, it's a safer product in my opinion. More of a deadbolt going through it. Now when you tighten this, you'll tighten it all the way down, and then you'll come back at least a full half turn so that you can get it undone when you're finished. Do not forget, you can even do a 3/4 turn. Otherwise it might not come off. Very important to remember. Also, when engaged in self-recovery, you'll want some form of a recovery mat. Now, these happen to be nifty ones from ARB, but a blanket, heavy blanket, even sometimes the big heavy rubber floor mats from your vehicle, if you can kind of string them together, but something to cover the rope and give it a little bit of dead weight. Now this happens to be a 12,000 pound synthetic rope from ARB. It's 30 meters or 100 feet in length. And the farther you go out toward the end of the rope, the more stress you're going to put onto your winch. The closer you're able to winch to your motor, the more pulling power, the less stress you're going to put on the motor. So I have 2 of these. Given the length, I think 1 is going to be sufficient. But make sure that you put some dead weight on that rope in the unlikely and highly dangerous event that it snapped or broke. It'll take your leg off. So in this instance, we have more than a mound, almost like a hill on either side of us, and there are no spectators or people watching. So if you happen to gather a little crowd around you or something of that nature because they are just enjoying watching you recover, no exaggeration, make sure that they are a substantial distance back from your recovery operation. Remember, everything is fine until it isn't. So keep a safe distance. So far everything is working perfectly. The land anchor, the pull pal, has pretty much buried itself into the ground. There's a tremendous amount of tension on the line right now, and I should be able to feel the vehicle begin to pull forward shortly. If you'll notice, I was doing small bursts. Probably maybe didn't need to in the beginning because it's just taking the tension of the pull pal into the ground. But when you're winching, you don't want to do super long, continuous strains on your motor. It can kill your alternator. So take your time. That's the key. Again, there's no rush, all right? Because if you break your equipment, you're really not going anywhere. And don't step on the line. So when I felt the ground anchor pull pal beginning to continue to move to the car, previously the vehicle was in neutral, I just put the vehicle into drive, slowly accelerated without the lockers on, in the traction control for sand, and began to gently accelerate, and just a combination of the vehicle helping and the pull pal doing its job, I just slowly pulled right out of it. I could have let the winch do 100% of the work, but if you can avoid it, you don't have to, don't. Try to use them together whenever possible. So a successful recovery, nothing broken, nothing damaged. First attempt came out. Doesn't always work that way. I've basically crested that little hill, and now it'll just be momentum to carry me down and spit me out the other side. Well, if any of you have ever heard the expression, take care of your equipment and it will take care of you, as old school and as corny as that may be, it is true. Now, I'm 50, so I don't know, not old, not young, but no matter what your age, be sure to take your time. I know I keep saying that, but I would argue that most of the mistakes are due to people rushing. Don't be in a hurry. This is a kinetic strap. If you have another vehicle with you. Kinetic energy is very dangerous. Certainly a last resort, in my opinion. I have some other tools and goodies in here that are not needed for the type of recovery we just did. A lot of these products are from Australia. Tell you what, Australia just makes some incredibly good products. When you have Danny Admack, horrible accent, I'm sure. These are 21,000 pound tree huggers or connective devices, depending on the application. They're also really good for creating a triangle if you have two recovery points on your vehicle and you want to bring those two recovery points into one connection point. Really good for that as well. Whenever you're doing a recovery, you want to have the fewest amount of moving parts and connections as humanly possible. Therefore, there's less to go wrong. So that's my recovery bag done. Okay, so now that the recovery is done, we want to be able to rewind our winch back onto the drum. So I'm going to make sure that it's released, which it is, and I'm going to pull out the amount of rope that I believe that we used during the recovery. So, I don't know if it goes without saying, obviously you want to be wearing proper leather gloves for this. And it is certainly easier with two people than one. So I closed the pin, whatever you want to call it, the little handle, so that now when I winch in, it's engaged. So you want the rope to go from left to right, right to left, slowly back and forth, so it has a nice even wind, so that the next time you need it, it's available for you. Don't wait to do this. Don't think, oh, well, I'll get to it later. Nah, you might not. And plus, we still have a lot of rope left, or cable as the case may be, and it'll easily bind up on one side, which can just destroy either the synthetic rope, which this is, or your cable. It'll start to splinter, or it'll bind up entirely on the drum itself. So all I'm going to be doing is, as I'm winching in, giving it a little bit of tension with one hand, letting it slide through my hand, and going back onto the drum. Now, even though I'm not actually pulling on anything, you still don't want to go the entire length of the rope on one winch. You're putting a tremendous amount of draw on not only the battery, but the alternator to recharge the battery. So you don't want to overheat your equipment. Heat is always a bad thing. In this instance, just take your time and, I don't know, go across and back once, or across back and once, you know, but just don't overheat your equipment. Now the fan may have just been kicking on its own, but it gives you an indication as to how hard the engine, the battery, and the alternator are working, in addition to the winch motor itself. There we go. All right, last pull. There we go. There we go. That's it. We're done. Woohoo! So if you'll remember yesterday, I was telling you that there were a few locations where other vehicles had clearly gotten stuck. This is one of them. I did not get stuck in this. I think because the terrain is flat and my vehicle is capable enough to pass over and through it, whereas on that steep embankment with the incline was a little bit of a different situation for my vehicle. But someone else clearly got very bogged down in this location. Hopefully we should be able to breeze through it on the way out. We'll find out. We've got more content for you coming in the days ahead, but as always, thank you, because you're what makes it possible. See you soon.